March 2001. Still working at Frame Art Galleries, living my life, and reading books. We're going to jump right into the books and in a second. So last month, or last week, as the videos go, a lot of same old, same old. I finished a 13 book series, almost all media tie ins. I think we got a nice mix of things now for March. And I started with The Inhuman Condition by Clive Barker, short story collection. And this is actually, if I'm not mistaken, Books of Blood, Volume 5. But over here in the US, I believe the first three, at least, Books of Blood were published as Books of Blood, three separate volumes. And then 4, 5, and 6 were published under different titles. Inhuman Condition was one, and I can't remember the other ones. But anyway, I don't have a copy of The Inhuman Condition because I have a 2-volume set that has all 6 volumes of the Books of Blood. But anyway, The Inhuman Condition, just for your information, contains the stories The Inhuman Condition, The Body Politic, Revelations, Down Satan, and The Age of Desire. That's the list that I found anyway. The Body Politic, wild one with the hand rebelling against the body. And I believe it was adapted in an anthology horror movie. But The Inhuman Condition, Clive Barker. I followed that up with Lawless by Ed Gorman. This is a Western. So already we've got horror. Now we're jumping to Western. The main character here is Sam Conager. He's gotten out of prison and has decided that he doesn't want to become the most famous outlaw in the Old West. So he moves to this town where it just happens his old cellmate is Bible-thumping sheriff, and he wants to just, maybe marry a nice young woman. But there's a murder and a mystery, and Sam Conager is going to solve it. It's Ed Gorman. It's good stuff. Then we have Vor, V-O-R, Vor, The Playback War by Lisa Smedman. And this is the second book in the Vor, the Maelstrom, I think is what it is, series, where the Earth has been pulled to a completely different place. And in this book, I tried to find a good description of what this book was because I don't really remember, but it was compared to Edge of Tomorrow, or as I like to call it, Live, Die, Repeat, Tom Cruise movie. And in the very vague description, it did say there's a cataclysm that is going to bring together the past, present, and future. So obviously our characters are dealing with some sort of time thing. The one review I could find said it was one of the greatest science fiction novels this person has ever read. So I don't recall it well enough to say. I'm going to guess it's not one of the greatest I've ever read, or I would remember it more. Then we have Spicy Air Tales Volume 2, which includes 2 stories, Manhattan Mayhem by Lauren L. Coleman and The Great Helium War by Robert E. Vardman. And this is in the Crimson Skies universe, which was a Microsoft game. The United States has split up into different territories. So there's a ground travel, because there's so many borders. Ground travel isn't really a thing. You've got air travel now is the big thing. Lots of blimps or dirigibles. And so lots of sky pirates and things. So just thrilling, very pulp-like adventures with pilots and lots of dog fights in the air and stuff. A lot of fun. Excuse me. Then we have, man, this is a wild mix of things. Musashi, Book 1, The Way of the Samurai, by Eiji Yoshikawa. Not sure if I've pronounced that. Eiji Yoshikawa. And this is The first, well, you can get this book Musashi in a complete volume, but you can also get it in paperback, split up into not sure how many volumes, three or four or five, but I think it's originally. Actually, I'm not sure. I was going to say I think it's originally a giant book that was split up into multiple paperbacks, but it could be the other way around. Either way, this is a fictional story about a real person, the allegedly the greatest swordsman in Japan, Miyamoto Musashi. This is the first book, so we're introduced to Musashi when he's young, and it's a very rich story set in feudal Japan, and very, as far as I know, there's a lot of historical accuracy, not necessarily all of it. It is a fictionalized version. This is not billed as a biography or anything. But if you have any interest in that era of Japan, this is not a bad book to read if you're looking for something other than just a straight history. Then we have Sins of the Father by Sam Chupp. And this is a World of Darkness book from White Wolf Publishing. It is in the Wraith category. I wasn't sure exactly how to say that. I wanted to say world, but all these worlds, they're vampire, werewolf, all of them tie together. But this has, so it's Wraith. Basically, you've got a guy who's dead. The main character is a ghost, suffering for his sins, but he meets another spirit who's going to sort of set him on this path and help his living son. So apparently his son, who's still alive, having some problems. This ghost guy going to make up for the sins of his own life by helping his son. Again, it's part of the World of Darkness, so you've got this whole world that's been built by the gaming system that the author is essentially playing in. We have Passage by Night by Jack Higgins. This is one of his earlier novels. It's a standalone, I believe. The main character's name is Harry Manning, and he worked in Cuba before Castro took over, and now he's a charter captain in the Bahamas. Just sort of a beach bum kind of guy, waiting for his girlfriend to leave him because he thinks she's putting up with his shenanigans and such. But then the plane on which his girlfriend happens to be traveling explodes in a terrorist act, and he is now out for revenge. He wants to find out who put that suitcase bomb on the plane and get revenge for the death of his girlfriend. And it's fast-paced, exciting Jack Higgins action. And again, one of his earliest works. So I like to go back and read the old stuff and see the progression someone makes as a writer. Hopefully they're progressing as a writer. Something fun, not that a lot of these weren't fun. Anonymous Rex by Eric Garcia. This is the first of, I believe, 3 books. And the main character's name is Vincent Rubio. He is a private detective, but this is a world in which essentially dinosaurs faked their extinction. And so in the modern world, we have dinosaurs disguised as humans. Vincent Rubio happens to be a velociraptor. His partner in their private detective firm murdered years ago. Vincent, in the present day of the story, takes a case. I believe it's an arson case, but it leads him back to New York. And he starts, not only is he dealing with the whole arson case, but now he's digging a little deeper into the death of his partner. And this is a really, really fun book if you like private eye stuff, but also alternate world stuff. And there's just little things sprinkled in where the author will sort of name drop, or the character, because it's first person, it's a private eye book. But he'll name drop somebody, some famous person, and be like, oh yeah, they're obviously, a triceratops. Look at their behavior. It could be, and I'm just pulling this out of thin air, but it could be Cher. Oh yeah, Cher, obviously a Stegosaurus. Look at how she behaves. Look at what the things she does. I think whoever, can't remember, he mentions a president that was a some type of dinosaur. So that was a lot of fun. And of course, when you have this sort of story that's can be filled with tropes and cliches because it's a private eye noir type of story, but then you throw in this twist that some people are dinosaurs, it can um, take those tropes and those cliches and turn them on their heads. It was a lot of fun. Eric Garcia's probably it was made into a movie. There's a movie or two. I think it was movies, like made for TV movies, made for sci-fi. I don't think it was a series. I haven't seen the movies, but Eric Garcia probably better known for his book, which will come up eventually on this list, Matchstick Men, which was made into a movie. Again, I never actually saw it, but it's about some con men, some great twists in that book. Really good stuff. But anyway, we'll get to that when it comes up on the list. But Anonymous Rex by Eric Garcia. It was a lot of fun. Excuse me. Then we have the one book that I happen to have, Stardust by Neil Gaiman. This edition, whoever put this out, Harper, they did a whole series with these sort of pulpish type of covers. This one doesn't seem very pulpish, maybe gothic because you have this mysterious woman back here. But I picked up all of his books that had this series of covers, slightly taller than your normal mass market paperback. But this is about Tristan Thorne is a guy, lives in a town, in love with a beautiful young woman, and then one day they see a falling star. There's a wall around their town that separates them from sort of this wild fantasy world. They see a falling star on the other side of the wall, and he says he's going to go and get it and bring it back for his lady love. And so he crosses the wall into this land of magic and things, and there are other people looking for the falling star. It's just a great fantasy adventure. Neil Gaiman. It's good stuff. The penultimate book that I read in March of 2001 was a long title. Star Trek Voyager presents Captain Proton, Defender of the Earth by D.W. Prof. Smith, which is actually Dean Wesley Smith, but they're going for an old throwback Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon kind of thing, or E.E. Doc Smith. I believe that was the name, the guy that wrote the Lensman's books. And this is straight up pastiche of that type of thing. It is in no way Star Trek Voyager. There's no mention of the characters. But Captain Proton, I believe, was a program that Tom Paris and Harry Kim used in the holodecks on Star Trek Voyager. I think that's where this came from. So essentially, this is like an adventure that they had, except it's written, presented as if it were this pulp from the 20s or whenever. And it has all those, it's, Captain Proton, and I think he's more Captain Cody, a Rocket Man, that's what it was, than either Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers, but any of those. But it's Captain Proton. He's got a sidekick. There's the damsel in the love interest that becomes the damsel in distress, and just fun. If you like that type of thing, this is just going to be a fun book. But there, even though it says Star Trek Voyager presents, there is no actual Star Trek in the book. Pardon me. Winter has finally arrived, and I'm all verklempt. The last book that I read in March of 2001 is Wild Blood by Nancy A. Collins. This is a werewolf book. I almost said vampire for some reason. I know it's a werewolf book. Why would I say vampire? Anyway, the main character is Skinner Cade, and his mother dies, and he finds out he's adopted. He's a Native American, and his real name is Skinwalker. Seems rather obvious. He gets into some trouble, ends up in jail, and then in jail he is almost killed, which triggers a transformation. He turns into a werewolf, breaks out of jail, starts crossing the country, finds more of his own people, and has adventures as he learns more about himself, his family, his curse or his blessing. Um, I believe this is completely standalone, and I'm a fan of Nancy Collins. I'm a fan of werewolf stuff. I thought this was a pretty nice book, pretty interesting, pretty fun, pretty good. That's it. That is everything that I read in March of 2001. And yeah, that is a very eclectic. I think one of the most eclectic months. I mean, horror, western, sci-fi, pulp stuff, feudal Japan, thriller, Private Eye, but with dinosaurs, fantasy, Stardust, just wild, crazy stuff. And as usual, even though I keep telling myself, like during the week, I'm like, I've got to think of a question before I start recording, but then I don't. Um, so let's see. I don't really know. I've probably asked. See, I want to ask like, what's your favorite this? What's your favorite that? But I feel like I've asked any of these that are going to come up before. Like, what's your favorite Neil Gaiman? What's your favorite Clive Barker? Um, how about this? This is going to be a weird one, but what what is the range of your reading interests? Some people only read one type of thing. So, what's your range? Mine is basically anything but romance. There may be something I'm not thinking of, but not a real fan of romance. Although, if like one of my favorite authors writes one, I would at least try it. But if you've been paying attention to these videos, you know that I read horror, sci fi, fantasy, mysteries, literature, thrillers, whatever other categories you have, um, media tie ins, nonfiction. I've read on these lists, there's been history, there's been philosophy, there's been science. So, as I always say, as far as fiction goes, as long as it's well written, it's entertaining to me, it's got interesting characters, um, I'm interested. I just finished, let's see, a horror novel. Well, actually, the last three things I read were horror novels. But I can look here and see a thriller and some horror and, well, splatter westerns are horror, but detective fiction, pulpy stuff, comic book, media tie in novels. Um, and in the other room, I have a few shelves in the other room. That's all my pop culture and philosophy and my pop culture and science and all sorts of like making of for behind the scenes stuff for movies and TV and different things. So for me, it's a wide range, is what I'm saying. But again, as I said, I know some people don't read that wide a range. So what about you? Do you stick to essentially one genre? Do you just read horror? Do you just read thrillers? Or do you have a wider range of things? I know at least some of you read mysteries, mystery thrillers, and horror. Is there more to it than that? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. And if you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is at Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. And if you're on Blue Sky, I am at EL Smith. That's all I have for you this week. So until next week, read more books.